Okay, so we're back with the Tatuaje Karloff, and anyway, yeah, it's you saw some of the text in there. Hopefully, the text was good enough to read. But 6 5/8 by 49, Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper with Nicaraguan binder and filler. And Pete Johnson says, what did he say? According to Pete Johnson, the blend is the same on paper as that of the other two cigars, which is the Boris and the Little Boris, but it's a little bit fuller. And so this is kind of like the, I don't know, one of the brethren, I guess, one of the brothers of the Boris and the Little Boris. And the Little Boris was created by Pete Johnson and the owner of Corona Cigar Company, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. But anyway, those two collaborated and created the Little Boris, which was sold exclusively in his Corona cigar shops, or Corona Cigar Company shops in Florida. And so, anyway, we have this one here, which was released in October 2020, and there it is there. So here it is. So it's Churchill size, which I'm not a super big fan of. I mean, this to me is a big ring gauge cigar, and I know a lot of you guys out there, a big ring gauge cigar for you is like, you know, 54, 60, 68. That's a big ring gauge cigar. But to me, a 49 ring gauge is a pretty big ring gauge cigar, but that's just me. I'm just some knucklehead on the internet with an opinion. So there it is there. It's also got a closed foot on it, so that, well, but the draw's pretty open on this thing, so yeah. Anyway, get all that stuff out of the way, dudecigars.com. It's kind of an aggregator, kind of a work in progress, kind of something, just a website, that's all. I don't sell cigars. And then there is the Facebook page, which is Smoking Vintage Cigars. Go on over there and post a cigar picture, whatever you want. And follow me on Instagram, dude90077. And then right down there, you have the subscribe button for here, for this channel. Go do that, and you can, you'll get alerted when I come out with videos, because I don't come out with videos on a schedule. I just kind of come out with videos when I come out with videos, because this is a hobby and not a job. So anyway, on top of that, we have, oh, if you want to email me cigar pictures, do it to the email. Don't Instagram DM me with that. It just does not work out that well. So just email me at dude90077@gmail.com for any cigar pictures that you might have. And if you have questions, make sure you take pictures, landscape pictures like this, landscape of the top and the bottom and all the sides of the box. And of course, the cigars inside the box if it's been open. And close-ups on the seals too, as well. So anyway, there it is there on that one. So what else? Oh yeah, lastly, the Patreon. I have tiers of $3, $5, and $10 on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/DaveDude. If you're really enjoying the content on my channel and you want to leave a tip or donation, whatever you want to call it, it'd be greatly appreciated. You can go over there and leave either $3, $5, or $10. But don't do it if you can't afford it, because that's not the point. It's just the point. If you can afford it and you're enjoying the content, that would be greatly appreciated by myself personally, because, man, well, I'm shooting in 4K now, and I'm using the Canon EOS R6 with an RF lens on that thing right now, shooting the videos. So the autofocus is amazing on this thing, and if you see the close-ups on this cigar, that's all shot with this EOS R6 in close-up with the RF lens, and it just looks really, really good. I mean, it's pretty amazing, the 4K that's coming out of this. I did want to do 8K on the R5 because the R5 seems to have overheating, but it's more of a replacement, I guess. I've been reading, more of a replacement for the Canon 5D Mark IV, more or less, which is shooting in 4K. But this is all mirrorless. It's kind of like the way things are going. So a bit of a pricey thing on there. So if anybody's, you know, helping me out with the Patreon, that'll kind of go toward paying this stuff off. So anyway, but I'm glad that people are enjoying the content on the site and, you know, offering up questions and so on and so forth. I really appreciate that. And anyway, so this thing here, the Tatuaje Karloff. Let's light this sucker up with my very expensive $4 lighter. I need to do a video on this thing, because what happens is that these lighters end up, what ends up happening is this thing kind of slips, because it is cheap. This is a cheap ass lighter, and there's a little plastic spline that comes out. And then when you adjust this thing, you know, at times what happens is it kind of slips. And so when you go to turn it, it's like, anyway, I need to do a video on that. Let's light this thing up. right out the gate, there's a bit of a blast of some pepper in there, of course, with tobacco. A little bit of leather in there as well. Right out the gate on this thing, but I noticed with a lot of non-Cuban or New World cigars, whatever way you want to call them, that it seems like this first little bit here seems to be pretty intense a lot of times, and then it kind of mellows out. Yeah, it's a bit peppery. A little bit of kind of a baking spice in there too, right out the gate. So I don't think it's going to be your typical Tatuaje. I'm not a big fan of most of the Tatuaje products that have come out. Just to throw that disclaimer in there right off the gate, right out the gate. I haven't been a big fan. The Skinny Tiff, I did like that one, and I'm not a big fan of Connecticut either. But that cigar, after some age on it, it was a pretty nice, it was a decent cigar. I really enjoyed that cigar quite a bit. But most of the stuff that I've smoked from Tatuaje, I've not really enjoyed. But I mean, that's why they make different cigars. So if you don't like Tatuaje, smoke something else. Or if you don't like Roma Craft, smoke Tatuaje or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's why we have all this stuff, because we're all like diamonds. We have many facets, right? But it's a definitely a lingering bit of a finish on the palate here on this cigar. It's definitely still there. It's kind of full right out the gate. I mean, it really is. Definitely. Yeah, the reason I tilt my head back like that, some idiot posted on there, that's the dumbest way to smoke a cigar I've ever seen. Well, when you blow as much smoke out your nose as I do, if you're blowing it straight down into your body, it comes back up into your face. So that's the reason I kind of tilt my head back when I retro my cigar, is because if I do it like this, it's just going to get smoke all up in my face and my eyes and everything like that. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of getting smoke in my eyes. It just kind of makes them watery and crap like that. So, I mean, yeah. I couldn't believe, like, some guy put a comment in there, like, that's the dumbest way I've ever seen anybody smoke a cigar. Okay. Well, I retrohale a lot of smoke out my nose, so it is what it is. Yeah, and I'm a dumbass, I guess. Whatever. I'm a knucklehead. Whatever. Yeah, that even right now, burning down on this cigar, right at this point, it that blasty, peppery kind ofness is just gone. It's still full body on the palate, but it's more of like a tobacco, kind of a leathery, and a little bit of, like, I want to say there's a nuttiness in there, kind of like walnut, because it's a bit bitter. And walnuts to me can be kind of sweet and kind of bitter at the same time. So it's kind of nutty a little bit. It's kind of like a walnut, tobacco, and leather right there at the forefront, with a little bit hint of that baking spice in the retro with that nuttiness. So it's got kind of a nutty baking spice, tobacco retro along with that leather in there. But the finish on the palate is more like that kind of that more heavy with the leather and that kind of nuttiness of the walnut on there, definitely, and the tobacco, which, like I said, walnuts for me can be kind of a little bit bitter, but they have that kind of sweetness in there when you first bite into a walnut. It's kind of got a little bit of a sweetness to it, and then as the flavor kind of dissipates, or kind of gets, yeah, it dissipates, it becomes a little bit bitter. So anyway. Yeah, it's not bad. It's actually better than quite a few of the other Tatuajes that I've smoked, to be quite honest. So, hope it's. I hope that it continues on this path that it is. So, with that, I'm going to smoke this thing down to the band, and I'll be back with the tasting notes. Back with the tasting notes on the Tatuaje Karloff. So like I said, it opened up with kind of a cornucopia of flavors in there. There was that tobacco, there was the walnut in there, which was, the walnut was actually the predominant note throughout the entire cigar. There was also the leather in there, along with a hint of a baking spice. And as the cigar developed in the first third, the walnut really came up quite a bit. That nuttiness came up quite a bit in there, along with that tobacco, and that it was, the baking spice was there, but it wasn't as prevalent as later on in the cigar. So the first third of the cigar was more like that kind of a tobacco and nuttiness in the retro, along with some leather and tobacco and nuttiness on the finish on the palate. Very long lingering finish on the palate too. Full-bodied cigar throughout the entire cigar. As the cigar burned down through the first third into the second third, there was the walnut, or the nuttiness that came up and was quite prevalent, and it really was very predominant in the second third. Along with that baking spice came up, and they mixed quite well in the retro. The tobacco kind of tamped down in the retro, and it became more prevalent, along with that nuttiness on the finish on the palate, along with a slight hint of an anise in there that was on the palate, along with being in the retro a little bit, but not so much. It was mostly that nuttiness with that baking spice in there that was pretty predominant. As the cigar burned down through the second third into the last third, that nuttiness was still there, but then a citrus note actually came up in this last third, and was really competing with that nuttiness in the retro. It became more a citrusy, nutty kind of a retro, and that baking spice really tamped back quite a bit. It was there, but it wasn't as prevalent as it was in the second third. The second third was actually the best third of the cigar, in my opinion. There was also on the palate, on the finish on the palate, you could really taste that citrus with that nuttiness, and an earthiness came up as well. There was also a bit of a pepperiness that came up as well on the back part, along with an earthiness. The last third was kind of a diminishing returns for me on the last third. All in all, though, full strength, full bodied cigar. Plenty of smoke production on this cigar. It was definitely a nice cigar to smoke. I have to give it a CA rating right now, around 89, around 8 smoke rings. But I think, personally, I've read and experienced all these things about New World or non-Cuban cigars, whatever you want to call them, about how they don't age as well as their Cuban counterparts. But these cigars here, I really think that they need to rest in that box for a while, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and kind of get that tannicness out of there too, because my mouth became extremely dry from about the beginning of the second third all the way down to the end of the cigar. I had to drink a lot of liquids, and that tells me that there's still a lot of tannins in the cigar, very tannic, which causes some of that bitterness in there. And I think as the cigars age and those oils and everything in the congeners begin to marry, and the oils begin to wick out, I think that these cigars are going to age quite well, and it's going to become a better cigar, a bit smoother, and won't have so much of that bitterness in there. But I'm just some knucklehead on the internet with an opinion, so take that for what it's worth. But I would say if you have a chance to pick up some of these cigars, go for it, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And if you're a person that really likes a lot of that mouthfeel in your cigar, this cigar definitely will hit the spot right now. And for those of you that don't like that so much, I think that if you age these cigars for some time in the humidor, I think that you will be rewarded for that. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough, and that's enough out of me.